Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to Aftershow, here talking about She-Hulk Episode 1. This is our open spoiler discussion, so in case that didn't make it clear, we're about to talk about She-Hulk Episode 1 in a full open spoiler kind of environment. So if you have not seen She-Hulk Episode 1 yet, you may want to add this video to your favorites list and come back a little bit later. I'm, of course, your host, John Campea. Good to see you guys here as we talk about She-Hulk, and of course, joined by Robert Meyer Burnett. Robert, how you doing?
I'm just happy I don't have to check what I'm saying. So Jonathan doesn't have to throw these
no spoiler warning things up for you now.
I hate when I do that.
I mean, we all slip. It happens.
But I slip all the time.
Happens.
Not quite Tom Holland level.
Not Tom Holland level, no. You know. Good to have you guys here. She-Hulk Episode 1 dropped yesterday. First of all, thank you to everybody, all you guys who showed up for our She-Hulk pregame show yesterday. That was a lot of
pre-Hulk
fun. The pre-Hulk. That was a really, really fun time. I'm really glad you guys joined us for that. And now, here we are. We have seen the episode. So here's what we're going to do. Rob and I are going to talk about our thoughts. We're going to go into some of the details of the episode, what we thought about it. And then we're going to go over to you guys and hear about your guys' thoughts, opinions, speculations, questions, theories, all that kind of stuff. And that's what we're going to do in the second half. The super chats are open, so if you want to fire those in, we're only going to leave them open for another couple of minutes, though. So if you've got a thought or an idea, theory or question, make sure you fire it in there fairly quickly. Okay. To summarize, Rob.
Yes, John.
What we said earlier on the John Campea Show in our non-spoiler environment, I had two thoughts about this She-Hulk episode. Number one, it was better than I thought it would be. Like, I was surprised how much I liked it. It was a solid episode, and we'll go into all the details here in a bit as to why. Like, I thought it was very solid. But the second thought was, even though I really liked it, like more than I thought I would, it was not as funny as I was hoping it would be. And now, again, I brought this up this morning. I'll say it again here. So Producer Jonathan, when I mentioned that when I came in the office, he asked me, he said, okay, but was it not as funny as you were hoping it would be because the jokes didn't land? Or was it not as funny because they didn't do as many jokes? And I said, well, it's because they didn't do as much. The humor they used, I couldn't think of one joke they put in it that I rolled my eyes at. I thought it was pretty funny, but they just didn't go as much into the comedy as I was kind of hoping that an Ally McBeal style legal drama in the MCU would.
Right.
But that said, and I do hope the comedy picks up, but that said, what they did in it was really, really good. And I love the stuff, everything that had to do with Bruce. I love the dynamic between Jennifer and Bruce. I love that whole island getaway scenario. I love the training montages. I was really afraid that they were going to turn Hulk into She-Hulk's jobber.
Right.
And they clearly didn't do that. Like everything, like I love this part where she gets frustrated. She runs at him. He just puts out his hand. He does that whole cartoony thing where he's just holding her by the head and pushing her back. Or like she throws the rock, but he's like, that's adorable. He picks up the rock and throws it into orbit and stuff like that.
With supersonic speed, it breaks the sound barrier.
Yeah, you can see it. Like you can see all that kind of stuff, and it goes off into space. We were joking, seeing that on the trailer. We didn't see it go into orbit in the trailer. So we thought, oh, it's going to go and land in the ocean somewhere. No. The thing went right out into outer space. Right. So I love the fact that they were able to highlight, shine a big light on, and promote She-Hulk, but they didn't have to downgrade Hulk.
Right.
And they didn't turn Hulk into a jobber. And I was afraid of that because, we saw that on Supergirl with Superman and all that kind of stuff. And I was really, really happy to see they didn't do that. And I could go on and on and on. Let's go over to you though right now. General impressions of the show, then we'll go into details.
Well, first of all, I mean, I really love the show more than I thought I would. And what I really love was the world building. And I was saying this to you before. I loved how we learned about what does it mean to be a Hulk? What is it like to be a Hulk? We found out a lot about how did Professor Hulk come to be? The integration of his personalities and the fact that he had that device on his wrist.
I loved that.
And the idea that Tony Stark, built him this Mexican getaway, hideaway, whatever it was, to do the research where he spent the majority of the blip. And it was, I thought it was fascinating because, Hulk, I love Hulk, but he hasn't been given, you said it best. You said, he's had moments with like Natasha, but we haven't learned about what does it mean to be a Hulk.
Yeah.
And we got the whole, the philosophy. I love the fact that, I thought this was now it's a syllabus because he never thought there'd be another Hulk. And he gives it to Jennifer. And I really found it kind of moving. in a way. I mean, I thought the show was actually the relationship they had, but also you really learned what Bruce had gone through. More backstory than we've ever got from him since when did he first showed up in Avengers?
Yep.
You know, and that backstory when Natasha had to go.
Well,
get
the
him.
Mark Ruffalo iteration.
Well, yes. Pardon me. Yes, that is true. And they did refer back to what it meant to become a Hulk. But I loved it because I thought it's a great episode, a great setup, but it was also a great episode for the MCU in its entirety. And I was surprised by that. I didn't expect that.
Yeah. Again, the MCU's never really gone. There have been moments with Hulk, but this one really gave us our first time when they were able to spend time with Bruce and him actually go into, because he even said stuff I think a lot of MCU fans never considered, like how Hulk ruined his life and how there have been years of him just trying to piece and put that life back together again. Mm-hmm. I also love the way they very quickly, with one line here and there, like, one could ask, like, well, what? So Bruce's blood gets in anybody and they turn into a Hulk? No, with one quick line, Bruce says, you and I, because they're family,
right? We
have unique genetic markers that does this. Boom. Just like that, one line, whole thing explained.
Done.
Then with the whole thing about, well, why does she not have the second personality? Just, we're different. That's it. You don't need to say any more than that because we're different. You have your unique DNA. I have my unique DNA. And maybe because you got it from the gamma radiation directly and I got it from your blood, that's why this. And they didn't have to go into it any more than that.
No, and that's all you need to know.
Yeah, and that's all we need to know. And I also love the fact that, Bruce continuously went on about you don't feel like there's a second driver in there trying to get the wheel and blah, blah. That tells me the way they went on that so much, that tells me real Hulk is still in there somewhere. I think what Bruce has not, I don't think Bruce, I think what Bruce is going to find out is that he hasn't actually merged the personas. I think he's going to find out he has just found a way to lock away the Hulk. And I think this was setting up that Hulk coming back. Now, maybe that's just my own confirmation bias because everybody knows I want Savage Hulk back, but that gave me hope.
Or he can actually turn Savage Hulk on and take himself out of the equation when need be.
Well, that would kind of like be like a Moon Knight situation, right? It says, you know what? Got to hand over control to you here. This is a you kind of situation.
I mean, the Hulk has always played on that Jekyll and Hyde, that classical trope, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, going back to classic literature. And I really enjoyed that aspect of this show. And I also, like you pointed out earlier, the relationship that he described between him and Tony. There was, what is it? One line you brought up?
Something along
it was during the
times, during bad. They were good. If guys in the live chat, if you remember the exact line, but he says something along the lines as he's reminiscing about the time he spent there with Tony, said they were good times inside of
during a bad time.
During a bad time or something like that.
And I was like, wow, because the whole idea of that, like, we only saw it jumped ahead, in Endgame, the 5 years. But what happened? 5 years is a long time. It's half a decade, and when the world was gone, like half the planet disappeared, that had to have been a time of great despair for everybody. Like, what do you do? Well, what did Hulk do? He spent that 5 years figuring himself out. And that was really interesting to hear about. I like that with Tony's help.
I also love
I wanted to see that show. The Tony Hulk show, like when they're hanging out in Mexico, drinking in the tiki bar, and then going downstairs and using their great intellects to figure his shit out. I wish we could have seen that.
I also really love the fact that as Jennifer and Bruce are talking, you learn about the isolation of Hulk, like really through quick conversations about like you chose, Bruce, to let this isolate and ostracize you from everybody else. That kept you from your family. That kept you from your friends and whatever. And she's like, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to be that. And I like that they set up the difference between them. But they also made sure they pointed out that her circumstances are very different than Bruce's was.
Right.
For so many years, Bruce was not in control. And like, that's a different thing. She is lucky enough that she got her powers a different way, and she just does have instant control. But I saw somebody saying, I didn't like the fact that they're saying that Jennifer has full control of everything just because as a woman, she understands anger better. It's like, did you not watch the show? Her ability to deal with anger is the key to her being able to trigger the physical manifestation of Hulk. It had nothing to do with the second driver at the wheel, the rage monster. None of that. That was not what the show was saying in the least. By the way, I want to bring this up in case I forget to earlier. On the show today, I brought up a scene that like it had Anne teary-eyed. There's a beautiful moment in the episode when they're talking about anger and stuff like that. And Jennifer goes on this, starts talking this dialogue. She says, you know, I've had to deal with the catcalling and like men getting whatever over me in certain job and situations and blah, 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 right? And as that speech is going on, I hear a sniff beside me. I turn and I look at Anne for a second, and she's a little teary-eyed. I didn't say anything, and we just kept watching the show. And after the show was done and Anne and I were talking, she said, I started to cry in that. She goes, because that's my life. That's what I've had in my life, trying to, because Anne's always been very ambitious, super educated, you know, all that kind of stuff. But she goes, that's what I've had to face my whole life. And she goes, just seeing somebody in a piece of art like this expressing that as well, that was very meaningful to my wife watching that. So I thought that was really beautiful. And then I see obviously the odd knuckle dragging mouth breather who's saying, oh, this show is hating on men. It's like, no, as one of our friends put recently, no, the show was not about hating men. The show is about hating assholes. there's a big distinct difference between there. But anyway,
I mean, if it was hating on men, right? She's still going on dates and her cousin.
Well, not yet. Not yet.
But I mean, you know.
Yeah. But, I mean, here's what I don't understand. I mean, as a man, my whole life, I know what we are. I understand what we are, and we are not the most well-behaved human beings in the world. And you can't say that what I liked about well, I didn't want Anne to be upset, but you know, when Banner says he's always angry,
yeah,
in a way, women are in a position where they're always angry too, because they can't go outside without getting catcalled. They can't do these things. It's just they learn to live with it. They learn to bring it in as part of their personality because that's their daily experience. It shouldn't be, but it is. And when it's pointed out,
yeah, you can't get mad.
Truth hurts.
Yeah, when it gets pointed out. I mean, I
have sisters and
yeah, me too.
You've seen it.
It was hilarious in the trailer, but watching in the context of the show, when he's like, okay, the keys to triggering the Hulk thing is anxiety and fear. It's just like, those are the base emotions of being a woman.
Yeah.
It's just like Anne laughed out loud when that line happened. It was great.
I have to tell you, I thought there was going to be also a little bit more fourth wall breaking. I was surprised that there wasn't
a whole ton of it, was there?
But that scene, I think it's in one of the trailers where they both turn their heads at the same time and look right out past the fourth wall.
Funny.
That was funny. I mean, even though I knew it was coming, to see it in context, it was great. And I think what's really interesting, John, I'm always talking about authorship. You know, did these people succeed at creating what they wanted to? And I think this show was a smashing success, at least this first episode, because we don't know where the show's going to go. I think this was probably an atypical episode because it didn't get into her daily life from dating.
This was origin. This was all setting up origin.
I thought it was beautifully done. And I have to say, along with WandaVision, this first episode, while it didn't like reach heights, I didn't be like, oh my God, like the Red Wedding in Game of Thrones or something. I thought this was an incredibly solid episode of TV. And I thought it was a great 38 minutes in the MCU.
Yeah, well, minus 7 minutes.
Yeah,
trailer, but of credits. Now, look, I am not going to get ahead of myself though, because look, I loved the first episode of Obi-Wan.
Sure, so do I. Yeah,
I loved the first episode of Moon Knight. I loved the first episode of Boba Fett. Those are 3 series that I ended up being, at best, lukewarm on. By the time the series was over, I'd be like, Now, I love the first episode of Miss Marvel, and I loved that show. I love the first episode of WandaVision. I love that show. But I mean, the first episode, I'm not going to let myself get too carried away. But yes, as one episode, it really, I think to me, the funniest moment in the episode to me, though, was after she wakes up and she comes downstairs into the lab. And he says, okay, so Jen, you've been hit with a lethal dose of gamma radiation. And she's like, he goes, wait, let me finish. She goes, you don't pause there. Like that, I laughed out loud like that. Which is, that's not where you pause, Bruce. So I was laughing out loud at that. And oh my God, That I think is the funniest moment of the episode, but the post-credit scene, Captain America fought!
It was so good. I mean, because they didn't, when they're having that great conversation in the car, we should talk about the Sakaran.
Oh yeah, yeah, we have to talk about that.
We've seen it in the trailer. There it is, the Sakaran ship. And I love the fact that they're run off the road by an alien spacecraft that's come to Earth. And to the point where it could have killed them both, but they're both Hulk. So, well, she wasn't a Hulk then, but she became one. They go off the road, and Banner's like, oh, yeah, that was a Sakarian. And he gives the name of the exact class.
The Sakarian
Envoy, whatever. Yeah, I'll have to deal with that.
Well, I think his specific line was, yeah, that was a Sakar blah, blah, blah ship. Seems like they're trying to send me a message. I'll have to look into that later.
Right. Which to me, look, I don't think we're going to see Mark Ruffalo or the Hulk again until the very end, when that ship's going to take him somewhere.
See,
he's being taken away.
I don't think they're going to make this show enough about him that they're going to have a major pivotal.
Oh, it's not going to be. It's either a post-credit scene in the last episode, because we're going to forget all about this. In the intervening 8 episodes, we'll forget this even happened because we'll be so invested in her funny, wacky story with all the cameos, and then the post-credit scene.
I don't think they're going to take him away. And I'll give you 2 reasons why I don't think they're going to take him away. One is he'll just grab the ship and crumple it like a metal ball and whatever. But
they need him.
Okay. See, that's a different thing. But here's the other reason why. And I was talking to a friend of mine last night about this, who brought up this really good point to me. He says, they've already done Planet Hulk. In a way, Thor Ragnarok was basically Planet Hulk. So like him being taken away, Sakaar, made a gladiator, they've already done that.
Yes.
But maybe then coming saying, hey, we need you. That's a different story altogether. That could be interesting. Mm-hmm. That could be interesting.
Because look, the Illuminati did not send Hulk away like in the comics. And I think it could set up something else by taking him away. Having him come back will be interesting. And by the way, can I just point out, this was a very expensive episode of TV.
Yeah.
People talk about I thought the CG was great.
They probably blew their budget mostly in this episode.
And what I was telling you earlier, I think what people don't understand, it's very difficult to create a human CG character. So the Hulk, we know it looks like Mark Ruffalo, but the Hulk is still a monster. So the uncanny valley is not that much of a problem when you're dealing with a creature.
Right.
But when you're dealing with, even that image on the screen, that CG looks pretty damn good. But we're much more critical of things that are supposed to look human as opposed to something that looks like Frankenstein.
Yeah.
Yet there was so much CG in this. It had to have been hugely expensive.
The one thing, Jonathan, I'm sorry to put you on the spot like this. I don't know if you have an image of Bruce and her, of Hulk and She-Hulk in an image together, or even just if you have one of Bruce of Hulk. But the one thing that I do kind of wish they would have been able to do from an effects point of view on She-Hulk, because you're right, I think they did a damn good job, especially when with the body and the motions and everything and all that kind of stuff.
Do you have
what's that?
Let me see here.
On his cheeks and everything, there's a lot of texture.
He's got stubble.
The one thing I wish they would have done with her, because I think the hair, but by the way, one of the things I paid a lot of attention to was the hair. The hair on her because hair is one of the, hair and fur.
Yep.
You'd ask any CGI artist, is one of the toughest things, right? I thought it looked great, but I felt like there was very little texture on her face. I felt like there was very, very little texture on his face. When you look at Bruce, it's not just the stubble. When you look at Bruce, like especially when it's in daylight and stuff like that, like there's the pores and all that kind of stuff, little imperfections with the stubble. Like there's a lot of texture going on.
Remember,
his face. And hers was a little different.
But they already had him created.
Yes, that's true.
They had the feature film version of Hulk that they could utilize, and with her, it's still a TV. They didn't have 7 years of R&D like they had with the Hulk.
But
Or actually, 10 years.
The
of
one
R&D.
thing would have been, just from a visual point of view, a little bit more texture on her skin, I think would have made a world of difference. But, again, that's just me looking for something to nitpick on. Again, overall, it was great. I love when they get into the court that the world didn't yet know she was She-Hulk.
Right.
And her friend's like, just come on, do it. And obviously, like, for what I think is the main antagonist of the show, with Jamila being in there, taken out with one punch. So, which is great for She-Hulk, but
Right.
it's going to be interesting to see what they do with that moving forward.
I have to say, one of my favorite jokes in the film was her associate. She knows I'm going to lose this business suit. I love this suit.
Oh, yeah, I love it.
But she's like, but get out of the shoes.
Yeah.
Because women in their shoes. Don't destroy those shoes.
And laughed hard at that point.
I love that.
But you
moment.
got to
I
take
thought that
the
was
shoes
hilarious.
off. You got to take off the
shoes off
shoes.
because they were saved.
All right, guys, listen. Obviously, we both liked the episode very not as funny as I thought it was going to be. I'd like to see them ramp up some really good comedy more as they move forward. But I thought as an episode, a standalone episode, as a start, very good start.
And surprised by the world building.
And
I thought great world building
surprised by
for
the
the
world
Hulk
building.
and the MCU as a whole.
Again, I'm not going to get too excited about one episode that I really like because
Sure.
I've had other first episodes I really like not end up being thrilled, but so far, so good. All right, so here's what we're going to do now. We're going to spend the rest of our time hearing from you guys about what did you observe? What are your theories? What did you think? What questions do you have? And we're going to do that for the remainder of our time here. But before we get to that, we're going to take a second and thank a sponsor of this after show, our friends at Athletic Greens. Hey guys, we want to take a second to thank the sponsor of this video, Athletic Greens. Now, when you get really busy, and you guys know that Ann and I are really busy, one of the first things that you sacrifice is eating healthy. And I simply have never eaten enough vegetables in my diet, I admit it. So for a long time, I've been looking for a really good all-in-one supplement that helps me get those nutrients and vitamins that my body needs. And thank goodness I found Athletic Greens AG1. So what is Athletic Greens AG1? Well, with one delicious scoop of AG1, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, and probiotics to help you start your day right. And for me and Ann, it's easy. We get up in the morning, we pour a big glass of water and add one scoop of AG1. So many people today are taking some kind of multivitamin, and it's important to choose one with high quality ingredients that your body will actually absorb. And it's cheaper than getting all those different supplements yourself. And on top of giving you all those vitamins and nutrients, it also supports better sleep and quality of recovery and supports mental clarity and alertness. Right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. It's just one scoop in a cup of water every day. That's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. And to make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/mailbag. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/mailbag to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. And thank you to our friends at Athletic Greens for sponsoring this episode of our She-Hulk After Show. All right, guys. It's that time. Let's talk more about this, but from your point of view, let's get on over and see what you guys have to say. Rob, what are people saying?
Joseph Rotini says, I'm in Asia, so a VPN has been a must. The other, was that not him? No,
Yeah,
No, I'm sorry. Actually, it's
Single show that we do.
Right.
Yeah, so I'm not totally sure we're going to do that. All right, what's next?
Not a bad idea, but hey, Cutter Hale says, first episode was really good. I love the chemistry between Bruce and Jen. I wish it was a 2-episode.
Oh, we lost it there for a second. There we go.
A 2-episode, pardon me. Bruce, I love the chemistry between Bruce and Jen. I wish it was a 2-episode premiere. Also, hope there's more Jamila.
Yeah, we're definitely going to get more of her.
Oh, yeah.
We know we're going to get more of her.
Come on.
And I was saying the same thing this morning. Actually, we both were, is that as a 9-episode season, this gives Disney a little bit more flexibility that they really should have launched with 2 episodes, just because, not because, I want more, it's because it gives us, as a first experience with the show, to have a better sample size of the show, to get a better idea what the whole thing is going to be about. I agree with you. I wish they had done that too.
Me too.
All right, what's next?
Let's see. Sveen 86 says, was it just me, or did it look like Bruce was about to Hulk out for real after the car crash?
Well, yeah, like he's laying there on the ground, and he did the old style, like, oh shit, I'm turning kind of thing. So, and also there were moments like when him and Jen started to fight.
Yeah.
Like there were moments that like, it looked like Hulk showed up or something. Like,
you know, and he had his little his machine,
his little inhibitor on there.
On the end, you know, we'll see what happens with that.
All right,
that's got to come back. SOMD Picker says Banner almost hulked out after the crash, so we're not the only ones.
But we were saying that, right? There were little hints, I believe, that were pointing us at the other guy, as Bruce would call him, is still in there somewhere.
Well, I mean, I think that was a big part of this. He talks about how it took him 5 years to integrate the two.
Yeah.
Like that's what, which I loved.
I agree.
But that means if they're not integrated,
one is just being kind of held down.
SOMD Picker says World War Hulk is coming. I will bet ketchup and eggs on it.
Well, that's good for you, but you got to put up a $5,000. Like, if you want me to do the ketchup and eggs, what are you putting up? But here's the thing: legally, they can't.
Right.
I mean, let me rephrase. Disney cannot make a World War Hulk unless they are willing to allow Universal to be the distributor of it. That's it. And we have heard nothing. I mean, there was some rumor going around, but don't buy anything into that.
Yeah, no.
Until Disney and Universal make some kind of deal where Universal, who so far Universal's been like, nope, we're not interested in giving up the distribution rights to Hulk.
Right.
We're going to hold on to them, whether you make a Hulk movie or not. And Disney's been like, well, we're not going to make any Hulk movies then until you give us until that changes, it's not going to happen. But it would be fun to see.
It would be fun to see.
All right, what's next?
Amin says, the CGI looked much better compared to the trailers, but I still think She-Hulk's skin texture is too smooth, and that's why it doesn't look good to me, as opposed to Hulk, who actually looked great.
I was just saying the exact same thing. Like, again, it was about, I thought the animation, the model, everything about it looked fantastic. I just think they could have textured it a little bit better. But you know what? That's fine, because like everything else in a movie, once I've watched it for a couple of minutes, my brain just thought that's what this is.
Yes.
And that was perfectly, it didn't become distracting to me. It's just at first, especially when you see them like going namaste to each other and you see both of them in frame at the same time facing each other. It's an image you had up on the show earlier today, Jonathan. Mm-hmm. You can really see Bruce's face, lots of texture, lots of,
but
it's very smooth.
His is a feature film CG
That's true.
Character.
The textures maybe already made.
Refined over 10 years.
All right, what's next?
Sam Fisher says, I agree with you, John. Not as funny as we thought. Only laugh I got out of me was Steve Rogers fuck in the end credits.
That was hilarious. There were a couple of like Girl Squad coming into the bathroom. Anne nearly died at that. That was just like Anne has had that experience like 50
hilarious.
Times. Again, the whole lethal dose of radiation thing, that was incredibly funny. What was some of the other really? This whole thing with the shoes, a lot about the fight between the two of them I thought was like, again, when she rushes at him in her She-Hulk form and he just puts his hand on her head like an anime, like a cartoon. Yeah. There was, again, not as funny as I thought, not as funny as I had hoped. But the little things they did do, I got to admit, they did get the reaction.
But it was set up. And for a setup, for a pilot, call it a pilot, it was a great episode.
Yeah, I agree. All right, what's next?
Ismail Montoya. Hello, sir. Hello. I really enjoy the show. I felt some pacing issues at the beginning, but I feel we're off to a good start. I agree with Rob. I like Hulk more.
Well, Hulk is one of my favorite characters in the MCU. Like, Steve Rogers is my favorite character in the MCU. In the number 2 or 3 or 4 spot is Hulk. And you know what's funny? I've talked a lot over the recent years about how my one kind of gripe with the MCU lately has been the fact that they neutered Hulk. This episode, I'm not going to say got me all the way there.
Right.
But it's gotten me a little bit over that. Like hearing Bruce talk about it and understanding where he's at and all that kind of stuff. I'm like, you know what? I see a little bit more in Smart Hulk now than I did before. I still want them to get back to real Hulk.
Of course.
I found I enjoyed Professor Hulk more in this one episode than I have in any of the MCU up until this point.
I agree. And I love the fact that we now know that Steve Rogers, D+, Disney Plus, a USO girl on the tour.
Oh, yes.
I feel pretty good about that.
It's canon.
It
By
is
the way,
canon.
Did you see Chris Evans' social media post?
No.
Chris Evans, he put out this social media post. It's just of a picture of Steve when he was younger, of Steve like laughing in a theater. And it just that picture with hashtag She-Hulk. Like that was like obviously, and it's like, damn it, it's canon. It was really well done.
You'll never hear the word showgirls and think the same thing again.
All right, what's next?
A-Rod 20006, 2006 says, right from the opening scene, Tatiana Maslany? Is it Maslany? Maslany is just perfect as both Jennifer Walters and She-Hulk. I felt an instant chemistry with Ruffalo. I agree with that wholeheartedly. I love their chemistry. She was great.
I feel embarrassed that we overlooked the lead. She carries this show.
Oh my God.
Like her charisma. I mean, and obviously Mark Ruffalo, full marks to Mark Ruffalo as well. The way they played off each other was fantastic. But knowing this is going to be her show, it's like, oh yeah, she's gonna absolutely
Crush it.
100%.
I mean, she's so she was great in Orphan Black, but she's got such deft timing. She's very funny. I can't wait to see what happens.
All right, what's next?
Sam Fisher says, I like that the show makes it seem like the fourth wall breaking is part of her powers. That's interesting. Like her first wall break in Mexico, she's surprised too.
Well, technically, her first wall break was at the very beginning of the show.
Yes.
When she comes back into their office, it's like, oh, wait a minute, you don't know what's going on. So now let's get back to this legal show. I loved that.
I love that too. I thought it was great.
Yeah.
I thought it was great.
All right.
Suthius says, that was Miss Marvel's insignia on the bathroom wall.
I did not notice anything.
I did not either. But
Do me a favor, guys. If you have a screenshot of that, send it to me at john@thejohncampeashow.com. I would love to see that. All right, what's next?
Me too. That's interesting.
We got the Marie right there too. Can you see?
Oh, Marie Seifring says, I don't know anything about She-Hulk. I found this first show a delightful introduction. It is also good to see how Bruce is doing after Tony and Steve left.
You know, we talked about this just for a second on the show earlier today, but it was beautiful. Whenever Bruce talked about Tony, he was trying to do it in an upbeat way, but Mark Ruffalo's performance, you could tell he put a little layer of heaviness underneath it. Like when he would talk about Tony, he was like, oh yeah, Tony, but you could tell he was hurt. And I thought that was beautiful. I love that.
It's great. And it was also filling in stuff about what we've already seen. You know, even though it happened off camera, you felt it. It was great, right? You're right. The performance was terrific.
Yeah, well pointed out, Marie. All right, what's next?
Elliot Cecil says, my opinion is that it was dog water. I wasn't a fan that it's another feminist look at men and that all men are bad and women are stronger, even if they're new to the superhero job, like a Mary Sue.
Well, Elliot, if that's what you saw, I don't know what to tell you. Because if you saw that, if you looked at that thing, which by the way made my wife cry because the experience was so real.
Sure.
And if you look at that and say, this show says all men are bad, fucking moron. No, that is not what the show is saying in the least. And that's not even remotely. Like, it's like saying, you know, we've had decades of movies where the lead guy can't get the hot girls because the hot girls they love were just so shallow, whatever. Was that decades of saying being anti-women and hating women? No. What She-Hulk, again, our friend pointed out, the She-Hulk was not anti-men, it was anti-asshole.
Right.
And this show also, by the way, has like the strongest character, the most influential character on her is a very positive male character in Bruce.
Who also went through hell, you know, and had to be self-actualized. I mean, I love how all of this, not therapy, but he talked about actual medical, this has real medical benefits. This is not some weird new agey philosophy. This is actually something that has been shown to work through research.
Now look, if you watch the show and the characters, the story they're setting up, the dialogue, that didn't work for you, then nothing wrong with that.
Right.
That's great. But clearly you approach this already with an agenda. Because nobody can watch this show and say, oh, they made it out that she was better than him. Hulk beat her at everything at every step of the way. Oh, you threw the rock far? Watch how a real Hulk throws a rock. Oh, you're charging at me? That's adorable. I'm just gonna put my hand on your head. You know, it's like, again, if you didn't like the episode, you didn't like the episode, and that's cool. But the reasons you're giving clearly clearly you came into the show with an agenda to dislike it already. So there's nothing more to be said about
Also,
that.
this is another Stan Lee creation. This character is 42 years old, and the Byrne run in Spectacular She-Hulk, where this fourth wall breaking came about, started in the late 80s. So you're looking at over if you go back to the beginning, 4 decades of Marvel history here. This is not something they pulled out to fit some modern agenda. This is something that legitimately has belonged to the MCU or the Marvel comic universe for almost half a century.
For decades and decades. All right, what's next?
James Hoffman says, love the fourth wall breaking when Jen says, you won't pay attention to legal drama until I tell you about how I became She-Hulk. Hilarious. Nice reference because the head writer said Origins was going to be in episode 8.
Was that true?
I don't know.
I didn't know about that. But that again, the opening of it I thought was great. Just the way she runs back in the office, they get the fourth wall. But I can't remember who said it earlier. One of the viewers said earlier that's like, I was surprised there wasn't more fourth wall breaking.
Me too. Same with the jokes. I think we're going to get a lot more of that.
You think we can get heavier into that as we move forward?
That's the only reason I wish we could have seen another episode, because the next episode is the main. It's how the show's going to go.
Yeah, I agree.
This was an atypical episode, I think.
All right, what's next?
Sam Fisher says, Jen's blood fixing Bruce's arm feels a little yada yada Ed. I wanted to see more of human Bruce and more of injured Bruce.
I mean, listen, I love seeing the end of Shang-Chi when we see Bruce in human form again. I was like, whoa, yeah. I would have liked to have seen a little bit of that too.
Sure.
But for them, look, it's no more crazy than them saying my blood getting into you turned you into the Hulk. And me, because of our genetic differences, me getting some of your blood triggered something in me that was able to do this.
Right.
It's not that crazy when you think about the way the MCU works. I mean, I'll just say this. It didn't take me out of anything.
No.
Now, it may have for you, and there's probably going to be some things that take me out of it that don't for you, but this is one of the ones that didn't
Dominic
affect me.
Toretto would say, the family.
The family. The power of family.
Power of family.
All right, what's next?
Suthius says all these people with different DNA to the point that the slightest alterations to their DNA results in abilities. Bruce, Jennifer, Monica, Kamala, Steve, Parker, etc. Very interesting indeed.
I mean, but that's something they've done, not only Marvel, but like a lot of the comic book stuff always has been, there's not only did this thing happen to you, there's always been something a little bit different about you to start with.
Right.
That's a common comic book thing, especially in the movies and TV shows. And I'm not surprised at all that they're kind of leaning into that a little bit more here.
Well,
as well.
I think the illusion or the implication is that they're setting up the mutants.
I mean, well, that's what they did. That's what they do with Ms. Marvel.
Oh, right. And I mean, so it makes sense that there are humans, there's a spectrum of mutation, and maybe there's still Homo sapiens and Homo superior. There's a break, but.
All right. What's next?
Danny Sanchez says, loved it. Great start. Hope they stick the landing. Me too.
Yeah, because here, look, the unfortunate thing is, like I mentioned, Moon Knight, Book of Boba Fett. What was the other one? There was the other one.
Obi-Wan.
Obi-Wan. There have been a couple of Disney Plus shows that I really liked the first episode and didn't end up loving the show overall by the time it was done. And maybe She-Hulk will be the next one of those. Or maybe it'll be one like Ms. Marvel, where I did love the first episode and I love the whole thing. So hopefully it'll be more Ms. Marvel than it will be Obi-Wan.
I hope so too.
Fingers crossed. All right, what's next?
It's off to a good start. Tim Platt says, now we know why Peggy shot at Steve in the first Captain America movie. She found out
Captain America Fox. That's a great movie. All right, what's next?
Ricky Bizarro, 1 or 2. Okay, probably a big stretch, but might have noticed a fun Easter egg. When Jen wakes up in Mexico, there's a Led Zeppelin shirt from Bruce. Mm-hmm. My personal favorite Hulk appearance was in Ragnarok.
Oh, with Immigrant Song.
Right.
Where the Immigrant Song was featured prominently. In my own headcanon, since the events of Ragnarok, Bruce has become a Led Zeppelin fanboy and has a bunch of merch, hence the shirt given to Jen. I think it's Tony Stark's shirt.
Oh, Tony
Stark.
Because Tony spent time there. That might have been that. But still, I didn't even think about that connection to the last film we saw. Well, not the last one that we saw Hulk in, but with Hulk was in that Ragnarok thing with, one of the best song placements in a Marvel movie
ever
with immigrants. For that then to have a Led Zeppelin show, I didn't even make that connection. That's well done. That's a really good way to draw that connection. All right, what's next?
Raymond Verada says, loved She-Hulk. Why are some fans mad with the bench promo being anti-homeless? Bench with middle armrests. Not Disney's fault if art imitates life.
I have no idea what we're talking about.
Because, like sidewalk benches that might have an armrest in between are not homeless friendly, and people are complaining about that.
That's really like.
That's a stretch.
I've seen those benches in real life.
Looking for something to complain about.
Like
those are real. Those exist.
A lot of those benches are old too. Like, yes, we must make our metal street benches.
No, that's a real stretch.
Right. I haven't heard that. That's amazing.
What's next?
Suthia says the way Bruce talked about Tony in this episode.
It was beautiful.
It was beautiful.
But again, the way Mark Ruffalo, I don't know how he did this with his voice, but sounding like he's talking about a good memory, but having that little heaviness in there. It's a great actor. Said so great.
And while he's a CG character.
Yeah. All at the same time.
That's great acting.
All right, what's next?
Raymond Verada says, I'd love to see superheroes hang out at Hulk's bar. Oh my God.
I think it's coming. With all the they keep saying all these cameos are going to be happening in this thing. I think at some point we might actually see a bunch
party
of
at Hulk's.
All right, what's next?
Everyone's going to get food.
Everybody gets fucked.
Ahmed, 1 and 2. I really love this episode. I'm starting to significantly feel the effects of losing Tony Stark and Black Widow when Hulk was talking about them.
Over here.
Also, I would love to see an old Steve Rogers cameo with Hulk sometime in the future. I feel like that would be such a unique on-screen experience. John, I didn't mention this today. I think we're going to get an old Steve Rogers appearance.
Yeah, but
I think they've set up a joke that they are going to pay off.
I've been saying that for the last 4 MCU things.
I know.
The last 4 MCU things, I'm like, you know what? I really think we're going to get old man Steve here, and it never happens. I'm not going to get my hopes up
think, how great is it going to be when Jennifer Walters says, come on, dude, I figured out when you lost your virginity. And you know what he's going to tell her?
What's that?
That there's something Bruce didn't know I didn't tell him. And he's going to tell her a story.
Maybe.
Something.
I look, all I know is this, is that they have been, every MCU show has had at least one episode that heavily reveres Steve Rogers.
Right.
Which only like doubles down on the fact that I believe Evans is coming back at some point, blah, blah, blah. But I don't know that this is the show to do it. Like if he was going to pop up in anything, it would make sense that it would be Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Or it makes sense that it would be like with Bucky or Sam.
Yeah, but you know what? This show was created by a woman, and it's got female writers. And the idea of talking about who got laid first and who lost their virginity, I swear to God, I think the first thing the writing staff was asking is like, "Can we bring it back?"
Well, I hope.
I think it's gonna. I didn't think that until today.
All right, what's next?
Oh, snap! Something went wrong.
Nope. We'll get it back.
Jonathan Schultz.
No, we got to
down here a little bit.
Oh no,
we still got a lot of questions to get through. So
my God.
Ahmed, we did. It was Raymond Verada right here.
Raymond Verada, who made the John Campea Show logo, the John in red.
Well, Ray designed our logo. Ray does all of our graphic design. Ray is actually sitting back there right now.
I only came in because, I thought I heard some more crying from these two.
There's no crying on the John Campea Show.
Oh, there will be.
Oh, all right. All right. All right. What's next?
I need to go scooch down past Ahmed. Milton Varagas says, Captain America.
That was such a great post credit.
Never gets old, by the way. Tim Platt says, I was expecting it to be more comedic, but still, I enjoyed it a lot. Even though I'm not a woman, as a minority, I still found her talk about being forced to control her emotions extremely relatable. This is one of two. Tim goes on to say, forget the woke haters. This is real life, and it's important to see it shown on screen.
Well, that's the ignorance of some people. Like, again, I'm sitting there and like my wife is getting emotional at that one scene because that has been her real experience. And to see that reflected back in a piece of art is moving. And like a lot of good art, it doesn't just speak to something. It speaks to something like Tim, that these are the types of experiences that people have.
Yeah.
And just because some fucking morons want to pretend like that's never been a real thing, fuck you. It is real and it actually affects real people. So shut the fuck up. Anyway, all right, what's next?
Spicy. Zombatron5678 sends in a super chat and says, I've seen a lot of criticism that the MCU has gone too feminist lately, yet they fail to notice that of the 53 official MCU projects from 2007 to 2025, only 10 of them are female-led. John, you know what? Here's the thing. As a comic reader my whole life, the Marvel comic universe has amazingly strong female characters that are leads, like Jean Grey and Storm in the X-Men, and Rogue and Kitty Pryde. I mean, that's just one team.
The one argument that these fucking imbeciles have never been able to have a good retort to has been the first 21 movies of the Marvel Cinematic Universe were all exclusively white male leads. The first 21 films were all exclusively white male leads. So I ask, does that mean that they had an anti-women agenda?
Yes.
No, they didn't.
Kidding.
Okay. And I agree. I agree. I do not believe it had an anti-woman agenda. But if you can go 21 projects in a row where none of them are female-led, and now, a couple of them are female-led, it's an anti-men agenda. Not only are you a fucking moron, it doesn't need to be said any more than that. Like, it's just the most ridiculous, idiotic thing. So anyway, all of this is people bringing their agendas to the table and trying to find an excuse to cry about it. So just ignore it. And by the way, that doesn't mean you have to enjoy it or that it works for you. Like, there are people who have watched Ms. Marvel that had no agenda, watched Ms. Marvel, didn't work for them, and they didn't like it. Nothing wrong with that. That's perfectly great. But again, it's just ridiculous.
But I would ask to go on to that point. I mean, why Wakanda Forever is going to be the 30th MCU movie. 30 movies. Why do you expect to have to like every one of them? 30 films.
Yeah, no.
There's only
You're not
25 official Bond films, and I like about half of them. And I'm a huge Bond fan.
All right, what's next?
Fangblaze71 says, apart from some kind of cringy moments, I like this first episode. I don't know why, but She-Hulk clapping over and over was really cringy.
To me, there's something that spoke very real about that. It's like, okay, she saw Bruce do something, so she tries to imitate it, can't do it quite well, but sees something kind of worked a little bit. Like, it's kind of like me playing a video game, and I'm really bad at. It's like me kind of playing a video game. When I find one move that kind of works, at first I'm just like, just do that one thing over and over again. Right. I used to play this wrestling video game, and I can't remember the name of one of the names of the characters, but there's this one character in the wrestling game, and I discovered this one button combination that did like an overhand chop. And I would just do that, the entire thing, like
Just
over
cheese
and
the
over and over again. So her figuring this one thing out and doing it again,
The champion of the world.
and I became champ. I did. I was like undefeated after that. The overhead chop.
But I thought it was kind of adorable because it became annoying for Hulk.
Yes,
I thought it was hilarious. I mean, it was hilarious. It was funny.
All right, what's next?
Elif Bezril. Bayersili? Did I get that right? Elif Bayersili. I like the first episode. I love the relationship between Bruce and Jen. Do you think we'll see Bruce Banner pop up in future episodes this season?
Well, we disagree on that. I don't think we will. I wouldn't put any money on that, but I don't think we will. You think we will?
I think he's going to come
by
back
the end of the last episode.
We're going to see him one more time.
I hope so. I hope you're right. I really do. All right, what's next?
Mista47 says, can't blame Steve for succumbing to the pelvic sorcery that many of those USO showgirls must likely have persuaded him with. I love this episode.
Again, my one thing about it was I've been really looking forward to a straight up MCU sitcom. I've been really looking forward to that, and this episode did not deliver that. But it did so much else right that I but again, like I said, I'm not going to get too ahead of myself because I really like the first episode of Obi-Wan. We all saw how that turned out.
I thought this episode, if nothing else, was a great entry into the pantheon of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. If this was the only She-Hulk we ever got, I'd be like, this is good.
Yeah.
I liked it.
All right, what's next?
Worthy. Jeffrey Lindenblatt says, it's interesting that the first scene we see Bruce Banner in is in a car crash. The same thing happened in the original Incredible Hulk TV movie.
Oh, that's right.
Fascinating.
Dun, dun, dun. So one of the greatest musical themes in TV history is that. Is there sadder music that's ever come out of television?
No.
Than that little what would you call it? What's the word I'm looking for? That little piano. It's
like
not a concerto, but whatever it is. Oh, it's just so beautiful. All right, what's next?
Also, just real quick, V gifted 5.
stream.
Lore Howard says, I think I get what Fangblaze 7 meant about the clap scene. Sort of like a fart-off competition. Made you think you smelt something awful.
She found, because that is consistent with what we've seen in the Hulk character so far, right?
Right.
Like heavy sound waves can affect the Hulk, and that was irritating him. And so I kind of dug it.
I did too. I thought it was funny.
All right, what's next? Because she couldn't outpower him.
Right.
Like that was established very early. She can't outmuscle him.
Right.
So she found some other things to do.
I mean,
So
it's
thought
like a
that
kid
worked.
going, what?
Yeah.
What?
All right, what's next?
Did we do that, Laura Howard?
Lore Howard, yeah. That's what we just did.
I mean, yeah. Okay, great.
Yeah. Fangblaze 71 goes on to say, this episode really made me miss Tony Stark. Seeing that broken Iron Man helmet on the chair, it hit different.
That broken
dude.
Iron Man helmet was like when that image first came up, I was like, the fact that he has it sitting there.
Yeah.
It's just, again, that coupled with the way he would speak about Tony, it was a beautiful, beautiful thing.
It was great.
All right,
I
what's
loved
next?
it. Attack of the Mushi says, called it. Some lucky girls kept Cap busy on the USO tour. Post-credits idea. Jen sees Deadpool in Feige's office at Marvel, i.e. X-Men in the Deadpool film.
A lot of people have been having that idea. Somebody earlier today wrote in on the show, says, what if, she goes to Kevin Feige's office and he's on the phone with Ryan Reynolds trying to get an NC-17 rating.
I think something in Marvel's going to happen.
All right, what's next?
Again, I live Barasli. I know I'm killing your. I feel bad.
Barasli.
Woke up very early today, Eastern time, to watch this episode and rushed home from work to watch this after show.
Oh, nice.
Love the John Campea Show. # bring on the filthy.
Thank you so much, man. Like I've always got such a big kick out of doing these after shows. I love doing. I love it when we get together and just talk about something we watched the night before. So I'm glad you're joining us for that, man. Thanks for that.
It's so good.
Despite the technical difficulties.
Despite our technical
And I
difficulties
can't pronounce your name. So I apologize. Suthia says Bruce actually kept his gladiator helmet. Laugh out loud. Yeah, I thought it was in the background too. I thought I thought I saw it too.
Oh, now I got to go back and watch the episode again to see for sure.
Yeah.
All right, thanks for pointing that out, man. I didn't know that.
Slice of Brie says Cap's virgin presentation. I laughed so hard
When she had the whiteboard out and
So
like
funny.
the theory drawing. That was the whole credit stuff was like really creative. I enjoyed
Hilarious.
that a lot. That
Hilarious.
was really good.
And Casey, Casey Mack says, would really love to see both Jennifer and Deadpool to meet since they both break the fourth wall. However, I don't see Deadpool's debut starting with TV.
Everything about that I agree with. It does make sense with the fourth wall break, the comedic angles, all that kind of stuff that, again, he's from Regina, Tatiana Maslany's from Regina. It just makes sense. But again, I just don't see Marvel taking a $1 billion franchise character and introducing them in a Disney Plus show. Never know, though. You never know. All right, what's next?
The man with the master plan says Hulk is more emotionally damaged than he leads on. Losing Tony, Cap, and Nat has taken a toll on him. Still not sure when this show takes place.
I honestly think everything in Phase 4 has been exactly when it comes out. I think this all takes place in sequential order. I think this happens after that happens after that. So I think it's exactly where it is.
Yeah.
I mean, I might be wrong about that. They've never said anything definitive.
I think there's actually a timeline on Disney Plus.
All right, I have to go check
I'll
that
have to
out.
look at that too.
All right,
I
what's
want to know.
next?
Mickey Bell says, hey guys, this was such a fun first episode. I love the tone of the show and the setup for the rest of the series. Jennifer is instantly likable.
Oh, I agree. Again,
Totally agree.
Like from that first scene when she's in the office going over her closing arguments, it's like, I already like this character.
Yeah.
Listen, because if that doesn't work, the whole show doesn't work. Doesn't matter what else they do. Doesn't matter what cameos you have. Doesn't matter anything. It doesn't matter what you do with the CG. If the character doesn't work, the show doesn't work. And it worked.
Agreed.
All right, what's
good.
next?
J Jav Dav says, I think by far the best first episode for any MCU show.
I don't agree. Like, for example, I thought the first episode of Moon Knight was incredible.
Yeah.
The first episode of WandaVision had me hooked immediately. And one of them I ended up loving the show. One of them I didn't end up loving the show.
Yeah.
But I thought it was a very strong start, though.
I did too.
do think it was a very strong
100%.
start. All right, what's next?
FP Cat says, I was surprised Disney let them say as much of the F word as they did in the post-credit scene. I thought they would cut the audio a little quicker.
Well, remember, this is they could say whatever they want. I mean, they can say whatever they want, but I was surprised they let it have any of that at all.
Look, I think it's a post-credit scene. You know, they figured, and you know what? If she just said Captain America, it would have been funny.
Yeah, but the fact that you get the
It's so good.
all right, what's next?
So good. Late Night Alum says emotional eating, Girl Squad goals, and Captain America. Oh my! I'm enjoying the start of this episode. Let's hope the series doesn't flame out.
Yeah, and let's call it what it is. Some of these Disney Plus shows, I mean, many of them have been really, really good all the way through. But some of these Disney Plus shows have had a tendency to start strong and then flame out. So here's hoping She-Hulk can maintain what it's had so far, because not all of them have been able to do that.
No.
So let's see what will happen here.
Yes, sir.
All right, what's next?
Aaron Epstein says they really should have given Titania the "Oh yeah" line. Such a missed opportunity.
The Kool-Aid man, oh yeah, come bursting through the wall. That actually kind of would have been funny. Although maybe even for She-Hulk, a little cheesy.
Yeah.
All right, what's next?
The Vector Cave says, "Hi, John and Rob. Loved She-Hulk. It was awesome. Do you guys think we will see Red She-Hulk, Elizabeth Ross in the MCU? Maybe later. I don't think in this show. I mean,
I don't think so either.
yeah, they need to be on. They need to establish a brand before they can change the brand.
Yeah, and I honestly don't see any need for a Red Hulk.
No.
Like there was some talk about Thunderbolts and what they could do with that, and maybe there's an avenue there, but I really don't see it happening. At least not in the immediate future.
No, and a Red Hulk, by the way, is going to be. You talk about uncanny valley. We all grew up with a Hulk existing in the real world, in our world. A Red Hulk's going to be a little bit more difficult to pull off on TV
All right, what's next?
and make it believable. Harv's K said, super fun first episode. Reportedly, the writer said this episode was meant to be a later episode, not the first. The show would have started without the origin. That's interesting.
Yeah, somebody else mentioned that, implied that a little bit earlier. I don't see it. Like, this is how you had to start this show.
Unless it was like the second or third episode, they open with this dramatic, I don't know, something happening.
So it's hard for me to imagine. Now, maybe once we see the rest of the show, maybe then we'll be able to, in hindsight, go,
fascinating
oh
idea.
yeah, maybe they could have rearranged it. But like right now, the way the show opened, like this is the way the show should have opened.
Yeah, I agree.
So it feels like if they did change it, it was a good change.
Good change.
All right, what's next?
J Jav Dav says, who is the other relative Banner mentioned in the car?
I don't know, but there were references to family several
Right.
times, so I don't know if it was relevant.
Yeah, I don't know either.
But I have to. But yeah, I listen later tonight. I'm going to be watching this episode again, so maybe I'll try to pay closer attention to it at that point.
Yeah.
But again, there was several mentions to family. All right, what's next?
Family. Blackjack Hooligan says, great setup. Hope the rest lives up to it. Me too.
I agree. I mean, nothing hurts more than a show that starts with great promise and then fizzles out. No. I'd rather the show be bad right from the beginning so we can kind of check out.
Totally agree.
All right, what's next?
Phil says, going into this show, it baffled me as to the timeline after Shang-Chi, seeing Bruce back in human form. Glad we got an explanation how it happened.
Yeah, so it did a lot of that. Again, what I was really impressed by is that they did it, and they did it quickly.
Yes.
That I did this because of this. Boom, now we move on to something
And we know
else.
this takes place after Shang-Chi because his arm is not in a sling anymore.
Right, exactly. So there we go. That's well pointed out.
There you go.
All right, what's next?
Khalil Frederick says, I love the heart-to-heart between Jen and Bruce. I did too.
And that really was the backbone of the whole episode.
Yeah.
Right? It was not just her. It did two things. It instructed Jennifer learning about what it's going to be. But it also allowed us to get a better insight into Bruce and how this has affected him and all that kind of stuff. And when you can use scenes and you can use conversations as a storyteller to accomplish multiple things at once, to kill multiple birds with one stone, that's pretty impressive. And so the writing in that I thought was very well handled on that.
So
way.
good.
All right,
So
what's
good.
next?
David Peterson says, loved She-Hulk. What impact on the greater MCU do you think the show will produce?
Okay, in the reality, it's difficult to say when all we've seen is one episode.
Right.
But I have a feeling we're looking at a microcosm of within the MCU.
Yeah.
And like even when they said we read the, Gal was talking about, it's going to be fun that we can bring some characters into that, show a lighter side to them. It makes me think there's not going to be like, cinematic universe wide implications.
But they are
Unless
filling
Hulk
in
gets to go
stuff.
somewhere. Yeah, they are filling in gaps.
We got a lot of world building, a lot of context about Tony Stark with Hulk and all that. So we're getting information that's sort of solidifying things that we have questions about, which I like.
I like that too. All right, what's next?
It's good. Tim Platt says, way out there theory. If we do get a World War Hulk movie, some variation of a Robert Downey Jr. Tony Stark is going to be involved.
Again, multiverse BS. I just, again, and the biggest thing, of course, is Disney can't make a Hulk movie.
Right
now.
Right.
Until this whole situation in the Universal straightened out. And I know there was some rumor going around about some Reddit report. Don't buy it. But hopefully someday they're able to get that all straightened out.
Yeah.
And we can get a proper Hulk movie.
I would love that.
All right, what's next?
Aaron Epstein says, Hulk throwing that rock into space. Does that mean Hulk is 100 times stronger than She-Hulk? Always wanted to know Professor Hulk's power level.
I think there's also something to be said about, you're talking about one character who is very aware of and completely in tune with what their abilities are, and one character who is not, and only just discovering what they are. So clearly Hulk is stronger. Is he 100 times stronger than her? No, not 100 times stronger. But yeah, you got to keep that part.
It's like when Pai Mei starts training the bride in Kill Bill.
Right.
I mean, that's what you've got, a classic mentor-student relationship here that has been shown in every permutation across many different genres. So this is not something new.
Right.
And I like it. I like that it was very classical in that way.
All right, what's next?
Actually, Greg Scott Bailey sent in a super chat and said, hashtag Captain America fondues.
That's just instead of F's, he fondues.
Yeah,
oh, I get it. Okay,
Captain America
okay.
fondue.
I'm like, did I miss something? All right, what's next?
Mr. 47 says, how did Jen get her powers? Sakar crash.
All right, I'll allow it.
That's pretty good.
I'll allow it. I'll give them
good.
the drum hit.
Crash.
I'll give them that one. I'll allow that one. All right,
Cheers
what's next?
to you, sir. Rob gets me wet for Star Trek. I hope so. Sent in a super chat and said, pretty sure I have a Hulk kink now. Don't we all?
But by the way, it's so weird because sometimes you watch a movie and you forget. Again, not as much laughs as I was hoping for, but the laughs that were there were solid.
Yeah, and her delivery of that line,
Yeah.
the joyful, jubilant Captain America.
Captain America. But even just the whole way she she was lamenting. It's like, no, that Captain America with that ass. Okay, it's just like one of the biggest tragedies ever. I thought it was pretty cool. All right, what's next?
Baby Boy 8603 says, so did we get the answer to our question from the post-credit scene from Shang-Chi when we saw Bruce as Bruce?
What question?
I mean, when it was, I guess. When did he? I don't know.
Can you bring that up again? I just don't know what question they're talking about. Did we get?
So did we get the answer to our question from the post-credit scene from Shang-Chi when we saw Bruce as
If
Bruce?
you're asking, did we get the answer to the question of why is Bruce in human form? If you're saying that's the question, then yes, we got the answer.
We got the answer.
If you're talking about something else, then I don't know what we're talking about. But if that's the question, yes, we got the answer.
I think so.
All right, what's next?
Jonathan Schultz said, for some reason, I thought that the courtroom scene at the end was a forced way to say She-Hulk is here to the world. If it was maybe a bit longer, it would have worked. Maybe I'm dumb for thinking that. Well, I don't think you're dumb for thinking that. I think that's kind of what it was saying.
But what was supposed to happen?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think, look, we're seeing the very beginning of a big sequence, like something big's going to happen. We are meeting these characters. It was like a cliffhanger.
Well, not really. She ended the fight with one punch, and they took Titania away.
But that's what I mean. Now we're going to learn about the aftermath of her revealing herself to the
We
world.
were watching it from her perspective.
Yes.
She's in the courtroom. Like, yeah, they could have done the whole thing of now we pick up with Titania, who's planning raiding the courtroom. And they could have gone and then followed Titania for 5 minutes and then her. But they were showing it to us from Jennifer's perspective, when she's just in the courtroom getting ready to make her close. Boom, this thing comes in. She decides, sorry, the world's going to have to see what I am. Transform, takes her out with one punch.
Right.
So I don't know what else they were supposed to do there.
I don't either. And it was a great way to end the episode. You know,
there could have been other ways to do it, but I kind of liked it.
Yeah, I did too. And now maybe she's going to get recruited to be the lawyer for, you have to progress the plot somehow.
Maybe she becomes Titania's lawyer.
Maybe.
Even though she's the one who just stopped
And
it.
they become friends.
And who knows?
Yeah.
Lots of possibilities.
Guess what? We'll find out in a week.
All right, what's next?
Jordan Saylor says, it was better than I thought it would be. The end credit scene was the best.
Yeah, it's especially to me, knowing that it did not deliver what I thought it was going to be, which was better, like more comedy, more laughs.
Right.
I don't want that in a lot of my MCU stuff, but I was looking for it here. Considering how good it was, even though it didn't deliver what I was kind of looking for, is kind of impressive.
I agree. I totally agree.
All right, what's next?
V sends in a super chat.
Oh, thank you, V. Well, especially since after all the support they've been giving by getting people gifting memberships. All right, what's next?
That's it.
Oh, that's it? Oh my God, that was fast. All right, well, that's what she said. All right, anyway, guys.
Not to me.
That'll do it for our first She-Hulk post-game after show. Thank you guys so much for being here and joining us for this. Sorry for the technical difficulties. We're trying to get some of those figured out. Anyway, I want to thank, of course, Robert Meyer Burnett for joining me here.
Thank you, sir.
Of course, producer Jonathan Boyko for running the show and keeping this thing afloat when all the technical problems are happening. Thank goodness he was here to get us back on the right track.
This is a lot of fun.
Thank you guys for joining us for this. And I think we will be back with our pregame show. By the way, Monday is our first Game of Thrones, the House of the Dragon after show.
I'm stoked.
On Monday. So excited for that. So we got a busy week next week. We got the Game of Thrones after show on Monday. We've got open mic on Tuesday. We've got the She-Hulk pregame show on Wednesday with the after show on Thursday. Another open mic on Friday. I mean, we just got a lot going on here this coming week. That's
Party
all
on
top
Campea's channel, dude.
the John Campea Show in the mornings. So big week next week. Thank you guys for coming along for the ride with us. That'll do it for us for now, guys. Thanks so much for being here. My name's John Campea, and until next time, my friends, bye-bye.